This is Cosmographia, the Randall Carlson podcast.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. This is Cosmographia, the Randall Carlson podcast. Episode, what is it, Brad?
104.
104. Thank you. Episode 104. Last episode, we were talking about the sun. Are we continuing in that vein, Randall?
Yeah, well, I want to continue on the idea of the natural forces that have been affecting civilizations on the planet, including the sun. There's a lot to get into with the sun and unpack. And we just kind of barely scratched the surface of the new information and new knowledge that's coming out about the sun. We can certainly get into that. I had a few more things that have kind of been sitting on the back burner, and a couple of new things that I thought would be interesting to look at. I've been kind of diving into some of the periods of upheaval in the history of civilization on planet Earth, and recently I've been looking at the neoglaciation, or the neoglacial, which is usually dated around 6,000 years ago, plus or minus a few centuries. Right now, that is what followed immediately after the so-called climatic optimum, which was kind of the period that lasted from about 10,000 to roughly 6,000 years ago, with, of course, variability within it and a major interruption at about 8,300 years ago. Remember the cold spike, that 8,300-year cold spike? We've talked about it. We've seen the Greenland ice core graphs, and it shows up pretty prominently. It's probably the most prominent spike within the Holocene record. It dates about 8,300 years ago, and it was in the middle of the climatic optimum. Now, the climatic optimum, was the period post-glacial, immediately post-glacial, that actually was warmer than now. And it kind of was in two phases, sort of like the Ice Age, the Little Ice Age, which kind of was in two phases. It started around, with some variability, it started in the late 1200s and early 1300s, depending where you were on the planet. It didn't start simultaneously everywhere. Important point. And then it ameliorated somewhat, and then it came back again with full ferocity and carried us up into the 1800s, and then it began to ameliorate, and that's when we begin to see the glaciers starting to recede and so on. And there's a new study. Let me see if I have it.
So there was a cold spike at 6,000 BC, 6,300 BC, that's what you're saying?
No, the cold spot, well, okay, so in the middle of the climatic optimum, a little bit more towards the earlier half of it, there was this cold spike that lasted at least a few years, maybe a few decades. I haven't looked at the latest data on that, but now it's a fairly well known. If you look at the ice core graphs and some of the other climate records, it shows up very prominent. It, like I said, is probably one of the most prominent cold spikes in the entire Holocene. But then, around 6,000 years ago, the second phase of the climatic optimum gave way to the neoglaciation, as it's called, the neoglacial. And so that was a very significant climate shift within the Holocene. And usually it's dated around 6,000 years ago. And it was marked by global cooling and an expansion of glaciers and ice sheets worldwide. Okay, and then there was some variability in there. There was the Minoan warm period, then that was followed by cold, then there was the Roman warm period, and then that was followed by the cold of the Dark Ages, then that gave way to the medieval warm period, and then, like I was just saying, in the late 1200s, early 1300s, the medieval warm period gave way to the first phase of the Little Ice Age. And then that ameliorated somewhat around between the time of the Renaissance, and then it got cold again, and then began to ameliorate or lessen the intensity of the cold around, again, not simultaneous everywhere, because there's a lot of regional factors that play into this, but generally you could say around 1850. It's pretty clear that the planet is starting to warm, because we can see that most glacier recession began in the mid-19th century. It didn't begin in the mid-20th century when humans started pumping, huge volumes of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. In fact, what we see, and I can probably pull up a graph here, there's been several graphs done showing the glacier recession that occurred. We have an intruder, an interloper. Okay, so there was an amelioration of the Little Ice Age that began in the 19th century, and we're essentially been in that. But even now, if we look at it, we see there was variability within that. So it began to warm, and then it warmed up, and in the 1930s, that global warmth peaked. In fact, in the United States, I think the two warmest years were 1935, 1936. So the 30s were warmer than now. Then, between the 1940s and the 1970s, the climate cooled. And that was one of the things that gave rise to the fear that we were going to be, the global cooling was going to be the thing that did us in, that we might be headed back into an ice age. And that was actually based upon empirical evidence and proxy evidence, empirical data of real time that showed that the climate was cooling slightly between the 1940s and the 1970s. Then in the 1980s, it began to warm again. And then around between 10 and 15 years ago, it pretty much stabilized, and the planet hasn't gotten really any warmer in the last 10 years. I mean, the warming now, the temperatures are about the same as they were 10 years ago. Pretty much flat. The pause, oftentimes it's referred to, and the pause is real. So there is a lot of variability. Now, I'll mention this too. When that global
come on, please let this be the run. Like, come on, please.
The 1940s and the 1970s occurred. The other thing that happened simultaneously
Why didn't I reload?
Was the radiocarbon
Oh my god, that was so lucky.
That was showing the
that was a
onset,
blessing.
The last glacial
that was
onset
not.
was way quicker than
It's
anybody
fine.
could
Still
imagine.
fine.
And that the periods of interglacial warmth, such as now, were
kind of slow.
Were much shorter than previously believed. So at that point, it became apparent that the current warming period has outlasted any of the previously measured warming periods or comparable. So those two things sort of fueled the initial fear that are we sliding into another ice age? If this trend keeps going for decades, how long will it be before we're back into the Little Ice Age? If that trend had kept going between the 40s and the 70s, yeah, we'd be in a Little Ice Age right now. So then that raises an interesting question. What climatic factors caused the warming that began pretty much in the 1980s? So there was pretty much a major spike of warming, 80s, 90s, and into the early 2000s. The point is that the climate has not been stable. It's been variable. And you can see that there's variability, more time-limited variability within greater cycles of change. So the signal, let's say, of the Little Ice Age, that's left a pretty good imprint, because one of the things that happened during the Little Ice Age is that the glaciers that had grown to their largest extent in the entire Holocene built moraines and as a result of that, and made glacial deposits, datable glacial deposits. It showed, one could see that, yeah, these are the biggest the glaciers have gotten, because any previous expansions of the glaciers, say, like even at the onset of the neoglaciation 6,000 years ago, they were overridden by the Little Ice Age glaciers. So in other words, earlier glaciers had expanded, but the Little Ice Age glaciers expanded more. So when they did that, they pretty much obliterated the previous moorings, terminal moorings, and so on. Does that make sense? And so we could see that the Little Ice Age glaciers had grown to the biggest extent that they've been throughout the entire Holocene. So interestingly, if you look at the baselines, in the global warming scenarios, in the climate crisis scenarios, glacier recession is considered one of the main canaries in the coal mine of the impending global warming crisis that we're supposedly heading into. But in reality, you look at it, I mean, it's no worse than anything that's happened before, previous to this. I got this. This just came out. This is an interesting. This just came out 3 days ago. And let's see, what was the source of this? Yeah, here's the report. Archaeologists surveyed melting ice patches in Canada and uncovered dozens of ancient artifacts spanning 7,000 years. Then there's photos that show the unique and perishable finds. After two winters with low snowpack, researchers set out to survey several melting ice patches in Mount Edziza Provincial Park. Where, do you guys know where that is by any chance?
Is this the place where the hikers started going up there? They started finding because
the first one we talked about, that was in an Alpine pass between in the Italian Alps and the Swiss Alps.
Come on, man.
And then there was a subsequent report from the Norwegian mountains where his glaciers had receded and showed the same thing. I don't have that either one of those reports at my fingertips. But this is a third. This is maybe Kyle, look up this. Edziza Provincial Park. That's so this study was published in the Journal of Field Archaeology.
Always, every time.
It's in Canada, Mount Edziza, probably Provincial Park. What province?
Northwestern British Columbia.
Oh, okay, Northwestern British Columbia. So it says it's a volcanic landscape that is extremely significant to the Tahltan, one of Canada's indigenous First Nations. The Tahltan have used the mountains for seasonal hunts for centuries and continue to do so today. Previous scientists had located many vast obsidian quarries and obsidian artifacts in the park, but the nearby ice patches had not been studied as extensively. Researchers said they were intrigued by the possibility of finding perishable ancient artifacts preserved in the ice. So when the ice receded, the researchers visited 9 patches and, of course, immediately found 56 perishable artifacts that were mostly things manufactured from wood, birch bark, projectile shafts, walking staffs, animal remains used for stitched hide boots, carved antler and bone tools. So anyways, here's the point. These artifacts, like the ones in Norway and the ones in the Italian Alps, were buried under the ice. With the recession of the ice, now it's apparent that people were occupying that for 7,000 years when there was no ice there. So, yeah, here's the title. Melting ice reveals dozens of 7,000-year-old artifacts in Canada.
Let's go. Come on.
Not that they lived there for
this is the run.
But it says here, artifacts spanning 7,000 years.
What was that? What?
I went to the website. I found the article from the Journal of Field Archaeology. So I have that, but
oh my god, that was really lucky.
So I haven't had a chance to actually read the original article. This is just the report.
Oh, it was just fucking terrible. Fuck this game. It was really slow.
But that's interesting. But see, what that does is it supports the idea that the recession of the glaciers that we've seen in the last century is nothing unprecedented. In fact, what it is that the expansion of the Little Ice Age glaciers in the context of the Holocene, that was unprecedented. Anyways, then within that we have, you know, the history of civilization is entirely contained and encompassed within, at present anyway, within the Holocene. And we're pushing back. Oh, let's see. And what's one of the more recent things?
My God.
Maybe I'll pull it up here in a minute. The study showing. Let's see. Where were they now? The study showing that now they've proved definitively. Oh yes, the footprints in New Mexico. Have you seen that?
Yes.
Proving definitively that people were walking there 22,000.
Wonder what the death time is.
That's awesome.
I grinded in
Yeah,
the
they now
things
have
though. Yeah, like it wasn't even that fast.
Different dating techniques. So,
It was fun
the
though.
original
I gotta
idea-
improve. I'm
original
grinding
dates, once we
every
got, people
friggin'.
were
I'm grinding
worried there was
everything. It's not
contamination
good.
'cause they were too early.
Yeah,
Now they have
the old
multiple
carbon effect. I think
Yeah,
one of
they've got now they've got multiple lines of evidence pointing to this.
pointing to that date. And now the report came out. I haven't really digested it yet. I just scanned it. The tracks were mostly women and children, right?
Well, there's one. I don't know about that, but there's definitely one famous set of a track of a woman and a child.
Yo, what
Yeah,
up,
we
Stash?
talked
How
about
are you?
that on the
But-
show.
Yeah.
And
How are you, my bro?
I haven't
They
heard that-
apparently went to an encampment or something. They turned around
Thanks for
and
being here,
went
man.
back, and in that interim, there was like some mammoths.
We
and
got
things
Grandpa
that crossed
Randall
their
on the
track
thing.
and some
Yo,
other
what's up,
mega
Christian? How
mammals.
are you, man?
Yeah.
So
That was a really interesting
Yo,
story.
what's up?
the outgoing track was,
Good
a,
here?
was
Nice.
a female carrying a child, and then
Right.
occasionally
Welcome,
she
welcome.
would stop, and you'd see the child's footprints running around her. Then it
You
would
just
be her footprints
landed
going
in
out, and
Fort
it was a
Lauderdale. No
mile,
way,
or over
man.
a mile or something in
Welcome
a
home,
very
buddy.
straight line that
I'm
that
happy. I'm
deviated
happy you
no
did,
more
bud.
than 1 meter
Congratulations.
straight.
Happy getting
Wow.
F4
then,
for work. I hear what you're
uh,
saying.
Sometime
Yeah,
later, she
Christian
came
is.
back, but she didn't have the child. Her footprints were
Wow, welcome home, my
not as
dude. I'm
heavily
sure you're enjoying the
indicated
heat.
in her- and there wasn't as much twisting in the footprints, which suggests she wasn't going as fast.
My
So on her
friends,
way
my
out
dear
the trail,
pals.
she was like go very fastly walking, like as fast as you can walk. And then her return.
You're sad.
was
Why are you sad, man?
normal
Don't be
pace,
sad.
But while she was gone,
I was sad when I came home, actually. When I came home to Ottawa, I was really sad. I was depressed for 2 days.
Stood up on its hind legs and looked around, then went back down.
Still, I'm
and kept
kind of
going.
depressed.
And then a mammoth walked by and did not care at all.
Oh yeah,
And then
I'm
she
sad.
came
too.
back over time. Yeah, her footprints
Why is that
returned
big?
over time
Why is
to
that
their
so
tracks,
funny?
so, like, they passed
Sorry, I don't mean it like mean.
hour or whatever it was.
I'm sad. Oh man, dude, everyone's up in here. What's
wild. I
up?
love
It
that
is wild
story.
when you start
Enrique.
actually imagining that whole scenario and
Yeah.
realizing.
Didn't
this
get
is
it. Oh
something
yeah, I
that
agree, my
this was-
dude.
Yeah,
Same
and
thing
then
with
those
Sour
footprints,
Sash. I'm a fool.
something happened
I did that with
that preserved
everybody.
those footprints forever.
Sorry.
They were never trampled on by any
I mean,
other
happy,
animal
nice. That's
or
nice.
people. So it's like she was the last one to step in those places before they were covered forever until now. That is crazy to me. So what? How did that happen?
And it dried out, right? It didn't stay wet, or else the prints would have been slowly destroyed.
So then you got to wonder.
Should we
you know,
try
okay,
the
well, what was
the
it's almost like
commands
she was
for
on
the
a
first
mission.
time
She
after
had
this
this
run?
child. She was
I
in
don't
a
know.
big
I'm warm
hurry.
though. I'm
She
all warmed
delivered
up.
the
This might be the
child to
B run.
somebody and then came back.
Yeah.
And then right after that, something happened. Now
This game, eh?
that preserved the tracks.
Yeah.
So what was that?
Yeah. Exactly.
What
And
happened?
does it have anything to do with the fact that she was in a hurry?
Yeah, that's
Right.
yeah.
That's
No
what I wonder too.
way,
And this is
wow.
the thing. This crazy thing to me is that the
Stash.
story
Yeah, go
said
with patience.
she was
Right,
walking
when
on
you're in the
bank
right,
of the lake.
being the most patient will
So
help
if it
you
was
the
the
most.
bank of a lake,
It was good. It was delayed.
that
It was
kind of
delayed,
tells you how
but
she was able to
it's
walk
after
this
like
perfectly
midnight
straight
arrived
line.
at 3 a.m., 4 a.m.
But how are the mammoths and sloths crossing her track? They would have to be walking into the lake.
Well, okay, so is it possible then, I mean, that the lake was a watering hole and they're
Very
there
shallow.
they're there drinking water while she's walking by. Then she gets by and then they're done drinking, you know, hydrating, and they get up and they go back
Yeah,
across.
could be it. Yeah.
Well, because how close was her tracks to the
50
to the
million? Aw,
shoreline
thanks,
of
buddy.
this lake?
Thanks, man.
We don't know. It doesn't. I tried to find this out, but
Thanks, homie.
that's
Thanks
the
for being
weird thing
there.
about it is that the animals don't have a
For
return
summer,
path.
yo, thanks, man.
So if she was on the bank of a lake, the
I don't
animals
know.
had to walk into the lake and not return.
I'll be
Or
honest.
out of the lake.
Oh, wait a minute. So
Maybe.
the animals crossed going towards the lake, not away
Next
from the
time I
lake.
come down,
I don't
I
know.
will
No, it
Say-
just says they crossed her
send you a
track.
message.
Crossed her track, but if she's walking on the bank, there's only they either have to come out of the water or go into it and not return.
Yeah.
So maybe it's a really shallow
I know,
lake. and they
I'm
just
honored
walk
that
all the way
you
across. I don't know.
care
Okay, well,
so
that
much.
would make me think that they were in the water, getting a drink, and then they left and didn't come back.
Go follow
Yeah.
Christian.
But
He
wait a minute,
streams
why
too.
would you not see their tracks
Fitness
On
and
the way
health.
in.
on the way in?
And Valorant.
Yes. And
Just
there's-
chatting.
I mean, the
Dance Dance
stuff
Revolution.
that I've read on this says that there's tens of thousands.
I want to get a DDR pad.
I've
That'd be
heard this too,
epic.
yeah.
And a lot of them are almost invisible because
Be the
they're
next
still
Christian.
beneath the surface layer. And the
Yeah,
researchers
pick
were
up-
saying,
oh,
like,
that's nice
when
of
you
you,
go
man.
out in the morning when it's exactly the right time and the air temperature is correct.
Thanks,
and
bro.
there's a
That's
little
nice
bit
of you,
dew
dude.
on the
That
ground,
saves a
then
lot of
you
money.
see all the prints because what you're seeing is like a ghost of the prints that are actually below the surface.
Uh-huh.
And they've done some digging, like, where they kind of very carefully go in and sort of pull the material of the surface off of the layer that has
Yeah,
the
we're gonna do it
prints
now. So,
exposed
as I
them.
fall
They don't-
asleep,
I think they're not trying.
I wanna
they're trying
show
not to
you
expose too many of them because they degrade pretty quickly once they're.
my
sure.
new Chat
other thing
It's not stone,
GPT.
it's
Sounds like there must be a Brothers of the Serpent episode already about this.
What the fuck is the command again?
Yeah,
Oh
we
yeah,
this
odd
multiple
job.
times, yeah.
Let's test out the
The other
new
thing that's
Chat
interesting, too, is that
GPT.
there's a famous one of like kids playing in a big footprint,
You gotta do it twice.
like little children's
Like they're
footprints,
playing in the puddle
like
of
a
a mammoth
puddle
print.
inside a big print. So I don't know. It's just.
You ready?
trying
Here we
to-
go.
I
What?
just
Come
love
on,
it.
why?
There's
Serious?
something incredibly mysterious about it, and it's like that one set just
Well, yeah,
doesn't make
make a
sense.
story out of these few clues that you get.
Yeah, and then it's like, who were these people and where did they go?
They vanished.
They
So that's Chat
disappeared. I mean,
GPT. So it's to test if
Now
someone
this
is
a
cheating or
screen
not.
share of the
That
Yeah.
command.
22,000-year-old
So
footprints
you
in
gotta go.
Mexico. Fossilized
Silo.
human footprints shown in
Missile
the
guidance
Gyges
systems
National
escape
Park
over
in
the base
Mexico.
explode. I'm just gonna do Silo
According to
Agent because
Republic,
I'm not
a
gonna do
report
double O
published in the
because
journal Science, the
you
impressions
see what I mean?
that early humans
It's a
were
test,
walking
man, to see if
across
someone's
North
not.
America around 23,000
What's it called?
years
I was playing double O anyways. I haven't played this level in a really long time. I've been playing full screen.
Yeah, we need to go see this stuff.
But it basically
Need to
just
show that
shows that
they
you're
leave our
not cheating. You know
footprint.
what I mean?
Yeah.
Although I'm so terrible at this fucking level, bros.
Some humans were walking across New Mexico. We had these early humans, and then 23,000 years later, some other humans came and walked. So, okay, there,
This
White
this
Sands
human was.
National
I'm doing it
clearly
mainly for the
wearing narrow
memes. You know what I
boots.
mean?
Pretty sure those are Birkenstocks.
I got a shorter one. I'll show you after.
no, they're obviously they're barefoot.
Yeah, I know. We're talking about if we left print.
If you left footprints, they would be.
I
narrow
shared the
boots.
command too,
Oh.
so other people can use it. Make their own prompt.
But anyways, what we got onto this, we got on a little bit of a sidetrack there, but that. Yeah, how does this tie into where you were going? The White Sands footprint.
Well, just the
Wait for the plane to
okay,
land.
I'm not sure. Oh well, because of the fact the White Sands
Exactly, bro.
footprints was just in the news, and
Like that's exactly
only
it.
because,
No,
it had been proposed, like you said, a couple of years ago. It had been proposed,
and it's like,
but
yeah,
then there
only
were the
this
skeptics
is
who
this is my
didn't think that
style
the
of silo
dating was
gameplay.
correct.
You know what I mean?
Now,
This is not
I mean,
fake.
what that's doing is pushing
know?
the accepted
All right,
date
we're gonna do the
by
next one.
mainstream academia back by what 7,000
I was
years
actually
or so?
125.
Yeah.
Wow.
Anyway, yeah.
What's the climate situation in North America? 22 to 23.
So that
1,000
one,
years ago?
it
Well,
tells
I
you
mean,
to
we're
do
getting
picks a
into
random number
Mexico,
generator,
which has been
number
glaciated.
between 1 and 30,
You know, the late
and
Johnson
another
phase
random number
glacial
generator
stage
number
began
between
around
minus
25 to
90
26,
and 90.
maybe
So that's what,
27,000
13
years
shot. I'm gonna go to depot because I'm gonna
So the glaciers,
I'm reset to Aztec. But
which
check
is
this
still
out.
growing,
14 shots at
for
45
another couple
degrees.
of
Okay,
thousand
right?
years at least.
Is that 45 degrees?
It's like that's what I thought. Is it like right around the late glacial maximum? Is that
Yeah,
sort of?
it's
Yeah.
pretty much heading into the late glacial maximum.
It's over.
Yes.
Wow.
You know what I mean?
Of
Proofed.
course, there would have been lots
Done.
of megafauna in North America then.
That's the other really cool thing about
genius.
this, is that it utterly destroys the overkill hypothesis.
It serves no purpose.
Those
Yeah.
people have been living with the megafauna,
Yeah.
like you said, for thousands of years.
But you know what I mean? Like,
Right.
And
we can do some pretty funny stuff, I
The
think.
overkill
Yeah, one of the
hypothesis is
arguments.
that, like, they show up and it's like these animals never saw
That one's a pretty good one
humans
because
before
it's
and didn't
you're
know
done
that
in
they
like
needed
a
to fear
second.
them.
Yeah.
So they were just
And how many
easy to
permutations are
slaughter.
there, right? If you think
Yeah.
about
Yeah,
it.
they just stood there
30
like,
times
building dumb
180?
animals and duh.
Well, I mean, I think. Yeah,
And then
the
you can
other way
even
that they
say,
put it
if
is
you
that-
want, you can
that,
add degrees,
it's the arrival of
decimals,
humans that begins
right?
the
You can even
total
say
decline of all
to the
megafauna,
fourth
right?
decimal
like, whatever
point.
the reasons are, they're trying to say
Up on my
If these
figure
animals had
12. Oh
survived
my
here for
gosh. Oh my
millions of
goodness. Did you
years
mistype 21
and
there?
we're
Oh
fine, then
no.
you
I didn't
show
say
that
it.
they
I
all
did say it.
disappear, and that's part of the overkill. But I mean, those same animals were also in the old world,
Dang,
side by
dude.
side with humans for hundreds
Yeah,
of thousands
yeah.
of years. And they
Yeah.
weren't
Anyways,
being
I'm not gonna
slaughtered,
say
so
anything
I
bad
don't think
about
it's a good
that.
argument, but it is one of the ones
I'm
that they
just-
try to make.
I'm trying to
overkill hypothesis.
see. I'm trying to use my creativity,
And yeah, it doesn't seem to work now
to
because now we have human occupation
provide
going
something
back
to the
20,000
community,
years
like
at the least.
these bots, these GPT random
So-
And that
RNG
seems to be
bots,
the-
right?
You know, that date is the end of the time of these people that left these prints living in that area, because they are gone after that.
Which I did.
Yep. So then this is from the, this is directly
Your
from the
task
Journal
is to
of
destroy
Field
the missile
Archaeology.
guidance
Here it
system and
says,
escape before the base
The article
explodes.
presents
That's
the results
dope,
of
man.
archaeological survey of ice patches in the vicinity of the vast obsidian quarries and
I
artifacts.
bet you can add words like in a
found
Jamaican
near
accent or
Goat
something.
Mountain and the
in a
Kitsu
Canadian
Plateau and
accent.
Mount Edzaiza
That
from
would be
the Provincial
hilarious.
Park. Let's see, ice patch
That would be
research
so
in
fucking
North
funny.
America has been the
In a
most
Russian accent?
intensive in the
In a
Yukon,
British
with
accent?
survey and monitoring conducted since
In a Q
1997.
MI6 accent? That'd be
Most of
genius.
the objects found there are associated with the ancient practice of hunting caribou.
Not sure what the
in ice
purpose is.
patches.
Well, it's to
As of 2012,
it's to make sure you're not cheating,
207 perishable
right?
artifacts from 43 ice patches had
because
been
that's RNG.
with
That's
associated
I
radiocarbon agents
pasted
spanning the last 9,000 years.
like it uses ChatGPT. Uses it's a
this
random
work
number
has been going
generator.
on.
I use
So this
ChatGPT
is-
as a
this, of
random
course,
number
is all
generator
Holocene.
to produce
Last
2 random
9,000
numbers.
years, I would put us
Like,
into the
it's
early
not the same
Holocene.
command every time,
And
right?
that would have been very much into the climatic optimum. So the climatic optimum.
Thanks, bro. See,
Glacier
17
glaciers
shots.
were much smaller.
I do
than they
like
had been
Odd Job
during the
though.
late Ice Age, even in fact
Odd Job's
smaller
pretty
than
funny.
They are now. In some that would is what we'll put it this way. Even conservatively, they
Wow.
receded to the.
What's
an
the secret
extent similar
room?
To what they are right
Is that
now.
Michigan?
And in fact,
Is that the
when
safe
you
or is that
have an
metal?
ice
Or-
sheet, a glacier
wonder.
receding, and then you see that there are these artifacts under there that were left there when there was a preceding era, when there was
I guess
no
I should
ice.
do double
Well,
O.
then you got to go, okay, well, how much further up? You know, and then, of course, the tree line during the warmer periods went up during the climatic optimum and has gone back down.
I'm playing
again
on
during
silent,
the-
so I don't know what's
the
happening.
Lysing. So that's the other thing is that when the glaciers are receding now, they're finding remnants of former forests that were growing there. During
Oh, I forgot the door
Holocene
opens the other
when
way.
There was no ice. Then the ice
Full-
came
full
in,
screen.
destroyed the forest, covered the forest, and so now when it's receding, it's exposing the former existence of the forest.
Oh, that's not good.
So what is this telling? I mean, to me, the message here is pretty unmistakable, and that is that, yeah, we're looking at times as warm or even warmer than present. So, like, here's another I'm going to take from this book. This is very consistent with studies on the Holocene. This is from 9 years ago, but it's, 2 geologists have been studying radiocarbon dates from peat from the top and base of a bog exposed by recent retreat of the Rutor Glacier.
Get the fucking
Let's
shit.
see, where is the Rutor Glacier?
I don't have enough bullets. Are you serious right now? Are you serious?
This is similar kind of evidence here.
Oh my god. Okay, thank God.
Retreat of the Rutor, it's spelled R-U-T.
Oh well.
Glacier. Showed that the
I still got the
glacier front
cheat. Get out of here.
terminated
Come on. That's not real
up-valley
life.
from the bog
It's not fair.
from 8,400
You know what I mean? So that's
until
it.
at
That's my
least
idea, bro.
6,000 years
Pretty good
before
idea, eh?
present. The evidence
I'm
is
not trying to like
consistent
burst or
with
pump my
mechanical
own
data that
whatever.
point to a high tree line
I'm not trying to compliment
during
myself. I
the
think it's just a
interval,
pretty good idea.
and to
Having no bullets,
reconstructed
yeah, really.
mean July
Shooting the
temperatures.
box.
Get this now.
Forgetting about bullet number.
At least 4 degrees centigrade warmer than
I
present
can't believe I was
temperatures.
still friggin' the
In
cheat
Italy.
pace, so that was
Italy.
crazy.
Okay, so
It's
this
a good idea.
is-
Thanks, man. Thanks, buddy.
yeah,
I'm not,
so
I'm
this
not like
is in that
searching for
one where in
validation. I'm
Italy,
just
it's up
excited
near
about
the-
it.
Does,
Because what I'm excited
is
about
one of the
is
biggest in the Aosta
if I
and
came up
Aosta
with this
Valley,
silly
and the sixth
thing,
biggest glacier in Italy is
imagine
located
what
in the valley
actual
of La
real
Tuile, or Tuile, I don't know how to
smart
say it.
people can do
Testa del Rutor is the name
in
of the
terms
mountain
of
in the highest mountain.
computer stuff,
Okay,
right?
that's
Like,
probably in the
the
same
chat
region as the
GPT,
earlier study that I
pretty
was
tight.
referring to.
Oh yeah,
which
for
I might
sure.
be able to pull up on the
100%.
break. But anyways, did you get that? The evidence is consistent with botanical
I agree.
data that point to a high tree
Yeah.
line
Pre
higher than now
1.2.
during the interval and to
Also, right,
reconstructed
playing
mean
1.1.
July temperatures at least
Losing
4
speed everywhere.
degrees centigrade warmer than the present
Every door.
temperatures.
Wow.
If the mass
Impossible.
balance history of the glacier is typical of other glaciers in this region, it is likely that average equilibrium line altitudes during the interval of contraction
Yeah, this is not gonna work.
remained above those of the present and well above those of subsequent neoglacial ice advances. So in other
Yeah, it's a
words,
handicap
you're
too.
saying
Yeah,
that
it's
the
big.
tree line was well above
Especially in
the current
archives.
tree line between 6,000 and 8,400 years ago.
All the
And
doors.
temperatures in this
disaster.
particular region were up
In
to 4
terms-
degrees warmer in the summer than at present. However,
That's funny.
the current warmth is unprecedented, according
Yes, that's what I was gonna say. I'm sorry for interrupting you, but when I was trying to look up neoglaciation earlier to see if I could find
All right.
some timelines for it. And by the way, they're basically saying the timelines shift depending on where.
Honestly, I made the
where
chat
in the
thing
world
just
you're
for
looking
like
at
a,
it.
like I mean,
Yeah,
for people
but
that aren't
Wikipedia
able to be
says
trusted, I think it might actually
Neoglaciation has followed
help
the hypsothermal or
the
holocene
trust, but then you
climatic
have to
optimum,
trust the
which
command.
was the
Someone else will
warmest
have to be
point
in
the
charge of
Earth's
the
climate
command.
during the
I
current
pasted,
interglacial
I
stage,
shared my
excluding
command
the global warming
on the
induced
elite
temperature increase starting in the
for
20th
people to
century.
copy and
Of course
paste for
they're
them
gonna
to
say that
use
the
and modify
Wikipedia
to
is completely
improve.
politically compromised.
But
Yeah.
then you have to believe
But what
that
you were
that's
just reading
currently
is,
the
like,
command. And
evidence
I
for
mean,
4 degrees
since I
centigrade warmer than
did
now.
it twice and it's
Yeah.
different every time,
And that's
and it's
based
consistent
upon,
from what I had pasted,
you know, the plants that were growing
I
there,
think
the
that's
level-
enough
the tree
evidence
line.
without
Yeah.
someone
I'm sure
being
that
an
if
actual
they
stream
went in there,
elements
we would see
moderator, but I
that,
would
would give
willingly
us a-
open my
how
settings
much the differential
after
in the
a
tree
run
line
on
here.
stream elements to show it's truly
maybe quotes
RNG
here, in the discussion, mountain glaciers are
and not
commonly
a
believed
list
to
of
have been less
predetermined.
extensive
And then you can use
immediately prior
RNG
neoglacial
to
ice
determine the
advances
number
of the past 5
of
millennia.
odd job
Denton,
iterations to do
Denton from
right.
1967, Denton and
Then you use
Parler
RNGs to
from
get a number like
1973,
17. I don't know.
Mayersky and
You
others
do
from
odd job iterations
1981,
17 times or something.
others.
Obviously, you
So-
probably add your own special command
Yeah, so
between I don't know how many
again, here,
iterations you
the
want to do,
point
maybe
I
1 in
think is
10.
that,
Then that
there
would be
is
what
a
10 times.
manufactured narrative
Be
that
10
is cherry-picking
times.
the evidence, and most people who hear about
I guess
it's the
for odd
warmest
job,
it's
it'd be
been, like the
the
claim was just
possibilities
made
are infinite,
last summer
right?
that this is, literally, it was said over mainstream media, this is the warmest it's been in 100,000 years.
Right.
I mean, that's ridiculous. It's laughable. But
Boiling.
but when you have people that are products of the government education monopoly, they hear that and then they believe it.
Fuck off.
We got to do something. We've got to shut down civilization. Well, here's the thing. I mean, if we go along oblivious, sooner or later, nature will do what it's done before. Nature has shut down civilization many times.
Yeah.
Your
No, we have
task
to
was
shut down
retrieve the key
civilization
card from a
to
scientist
keep nature from shutting down civilization.
and use it to unlock a secret room
That's the
containing
goal,
valuable intel.
right? If we
That's
don't
the
shut
goal.
it down, then nature will shut it down. So we got to shut it down. Keep it from being shut down.
Yeah, let's.
Man's ego back again. Stronger than nature.
Yeah, the field evidence and radiocarbon dates from Rutor Glacier indicate
Nice, let's go.
that one or more bodies have peaked, which now lie in the deglaciated foreland and possibly
Why?
still beneath the
Like,
glacier,
seriously?
formed and remained beyond the terminus from at least 8,400 until about
Like,
6,000 years
so
before
dumb, man.
present. Such condition required that the glacier's equilibrium line stood as high as or higher than it does today for an extended time. That this is not a unique case is demonstrated by fossil remains of Larix and Pinus trees, which recently have been released at the fronts of Gorner, Zermatt, Verpaclay, and Mont Mine
Oh, this
or
game.
Menai glaciers
This
in the
game.
Swiss Alps. So there he's referencing 1, 2,
This game,
3,
man.
4 glaciers that have been receding into Swiss Alps.
I would have had a chance if
showing
that
the
guy
same
didn't
thing.
shoot me from way back
They're
there. It
revealing
was too slow
former
anyways.
trees. So in other
It's
words,
whatever.
the trees were growing, the weather got
We're having
cold,
good attempts
the
though.
glacier advanced, encroached over areas that had previously been forested, killed the trees, and then now they're melting back to where they were previously. So again, we're being told over and over, all this stuff that's happening is unprecedented. And then so let's see, they dated.
I'm also interested in this. Like, what is the state of these tree remains? You know, like we've talked about this many times. Like the advance of the ice is just crushing everything in front of it into dust. But if it's retreating and leaving evidence of trees, then I mean, are they talking about tiny wood fragments, or are they
Let's
finding
see,
root
here's
systems?
what it said. 7 such trees from those 4 glacier forelands is the area in front of the glacier snout.
Okay.
So we can add that to our vocab. The forelands.
Forelands.
Glacier forelands.
Okay.
Yeah. That's
Part
different
that
than
stabs down
foreland.
into the warm areas.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. 7 such trees, samples of which range in age from about 8,200 to 6,000 years before present, must have lived in stable environments behind or
fine. It's not
above
fine.
the present limits of the glaciers. Although the trees are inferred to have been killed and
Hate this game.
overrun by advancing ice at the times indicated by the radiocarbon dates of the outer wood. Such advances were restricted to the zone inside AD 1973 limit of the ice, as the data provide only maximum possible limits for the glacier expansion. The true magnitude of the advances is unknown. However, they were small enough that the ice front advanced no further than its limit during the recent interval of mid-20th century glacier contraction. The
So
evidence
it
supports.
doesn't really describe the state of the tree samples they're finding.
So far, no.
Yeah.
The evidence supports the hypothesis that mountain glaciers were in a contracted state for several millennia during the Middle Holocene hypsothermal interval. It is also consistent with results of recent paleoclimatic reconstructions of Europe
Brutal.
that, on the basis of pollen data, indicate that mean July temperature in the Western Alps was at least 4 degrees centigrade.
You gotta. I think you gotta do it twice in a row.
6,000 years before
Yeah.
present than it is today. So,
Try again. Just like spam it.
Interesting stuff.
Well, on that question about the state of the trees,
Again.
I think in one of the mountain passes, the first
I
one
don't
that I
know.
heard of,
Just
where
try it
they were
like
able to finally go up,
write it,
they found, like,
and
a
then
quiver of air.
2 seconds later
Yeah.
write it again.
So
Yeah, but no, but try. I know what you're saying, but try like writing it and then 2 seconds later, or like 1 second. I know what you mean.
Yeah, I'm thinking, there are places, where you
What?
have, for example, your
Try again.
accumulations where there's not going to be a lot of glacier flow.
I don't know.
I mean, it'll flow out from there, but
It's fine.
picture
I think the way I'm
the
gonna.
snow starts coming, and you're going to have multiple years of snow burying whatever is there. Now you go down slope from there, and the grade, and again, the steeper the gradient, the faster.
God.
the
I think the
glacier
way I'm gonna do it is
So I
not
presume
not
it's-
the request, but I'm saying
Off of
the way
Yeah.
is if someone tries to write it,
Yeah, so
I'll just do it. I'll write it twice.
is very well.
Cause then
Yeah.
if I'm really in the zone,
Um,
I'm definitely gonna veto people doing
And
it. That's
I
why I
would
did it a
think
couple
too,
times
if
just to
those-
prove it. But
if
like
it was doing a
I-
lot
I
of
may veto it.
ripping
I'll
up
do
and
it one
grinding
more
of
time
these
now.
trees, then they would be much further
After
down
this.
the mountain than they would have started. So they
if
must
they're
be
ripping up the trees.
Yeah,
No, I think they're finding, like I've actually
they're in
seen.
situ.
Yeah, I think that there's actually in some cases like stumps
Yeah.
still there. They've been sheared off, but the
That's what I
stumps
was
and the
thinking.
roots
They're-
don't.
Come on.
Finding roots. Yeah.
We literally just did that.
So there he was referencing the Alps, and then the Rutoi. This is in British Columbia. So we have basically two sides of the world showing the same evidence of a climate that's about 4 degrees centigrade warmer than now. So that's a pretty good indication that we're looking at something that's a warming that's global in extent.
Yo, Sailor, thanks, bro. Thanks, man. Thanks, homie. Yeah,
You want to take a
I
quick
saw your. I
break?
think I saw your message. You're beautiful, whatever, right?
We
In
can
that
all
new
think about
video.
that.
Thanks, man.
4 degrees centigrade warmer than now.
Thanks, homie.
8,000.
Yeah,
BC.
we filmed it. I didn't have a gimbal. I didn't remember bringing a gimbal.
It was 6,000 to 8,400 years ago.
Ago. Okay.
So now I mentioned.
But
the
that was
cold
at like
snap
7
8,400,
o'clock
But I've noticed there's up to a
before New
century
Year's, so the sun went
or two
down. It looked like it was later, but it was about 7 p.m.
cold
Yeah.
spike.
on Ocean
And then
Drive.
the neoglaciation, the onset of that.
Yeah, dude, it was
I
chill,
think around
man.
6,000.
You watch fireworks for free.
But
People were
again,
having
there are
picnics and
multiple-
shit.
Centennial variability, like you said there.
With their
in reading
kids,
from
it was
Wikipedia,
really
which
chill.
I would agree with.
It wasn't
It was
crazy.
not
Everyone was so
uniform
nice and happy.
Yeah.
Some
There was a
places-
general overall
It was
climate
amazing.
shift, but it was it affected different regions at different times.
Yes.
I love it
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
It's like you can't be upset
All right,
there.
let's
It's
take
just
a
so
break.
nice.
We'll be right back.
It's like it's just too nice to be upset. Sounds great. Yeah. Thanks, bro. My nose is so itchy. Jesus Christ.
And we're back, ladies and gentlemen. Cosmographia, the Randall Carlson podcast returns. Continuing on, we got more stuff on this period you've been talking
Well,
about.
Yeah. well,
Archives again? Come on, bro.
Very.
Come on, man.
In fact,
You're
after
making me
meeting
look
you guys
bad.
4 years ago,
ChatGPT, you are
know, I
making
was
me
already
look
shifting over to
like a cheater,
taking a deeper look at the Holocene,
like a liar.
and I've continued to do that because now we begin to see. I
Usually was doing
primarily
facility all the
looking
time
at
because I think facility was the
really
most famous
outside
one. So I had to
geological
list all
events. So,
20.
At a time there was looking
In-
at great mass extinction
That's why I said,
episodes.
I mean, this is word archives
Gene,
because
early
I shortened it
Triassic,
because
the
there's
late
only
Ordovician,
256 characters
late
available.
Devonian, all of those. Then coming into the
So
latest
I went like ARCH,
catastrophic episode at the end of
calves,
the last ice age, and how that might have
FAC.
affected the long-term, evolution
it's
of human
a
culture that goes back to the beginning of humans, which of course
pre-installed.
a
It's through
question in
stream
the area
elements.
of, you know,
I wrote
strong
a
interest.
detailed post
But I've
about it
also
on
been
the
now
Elite
thinking more
forum,
about
GoldenEye
what has
forum.
gone on in the Holocene, more so than I was.
It's 4
couple
stream
of
elements
decade or two
to
ago.
use as a
And what I'm finding, is that there's just
chat
this amazing
command. But what it does is it
material coming coming out.
it's a
now that,
pre-built-in
so we're just
stream
what we're just
elements
talking about is Holocene events.
ChatGPT
You know, we have the climatic optimum.
account
The
and
idea
everything,
that you might have had
which is
periods of
why
there's
I'm able
multiple degrees
to use
warmer
it.
than now. What are the implications of
Just
that?
requirements are
And,
256
should we be looking
characters.
at that in the context of, well, you know, the concern now is we're, you know, what is it, 1.2 degrees warmer now than the
I can paste the link if you want.
Right? So we're still
Because
well
the
within
next
the
step
range of natural
is to have the chat. Okay, what I really want is the chatter to write the prompt. You know what I mean? That would be like that's the best. But I think it's a pretty good barrier because
if we're talking about civilization, we've got hard evidence.
I don't know. I don't react well for people channel points requesting me to do something, and then I rarely do it. Or sometimes I can't see the request on my chat. I imagine they do. I do that based on the. I like to be in control of. I know that sounds like I'm cheating, but if someone comes in and says you have to do it now for proof, I'll do it. The RNG, whatever. ChatGPT. RNG and ChatGPT. The 15th iteration of. Thanks, man. Just a black sweater, man. Thanks, bro. It does look pretty slick, man. It does look like fucking Neo from the Matrix.
Is a
No,
whole
joking.
separate question. Then there's the question of this amazingly rich and complex story of efforts to create civilization as we know it during the Holocene. And even in the Holocene, we discover that it's been enormously variable. And there's a lot of evidence suggesting that, you know, there have been multiple efforts.
Alright, Sailor Curse. Hope you're doing well, man. Happy New Year, bro.
And they've been
Happy New Year, my friend.
By things that have happened. There's one here. Let me pull this up.
That would be cool, yeah.
Report that appeared in the Journal of
I could
Archaeological
always edit it on
Science.
the fly, but I mean,
this was in 2011.
or I
and it is
give.
the 9th century before the
I think I can give users command or whatever. Happy New Year, yo, thanks, bro. Whatever. This is the first step of learning.
SAFI, and then it has a back
In reality, I
/
wanted to appear
GATA.
every 15 minutes, or not every, maybe like every hour or something,
The
but
9th century before Common Era.
I don't know how to set that up.
Okay, integrating macro and micro archaeology, and then this is what.
Sure, I'll
they
paste the
say
link. I'll
they're
paste the link in chat.
Destruction events in multi-period sites are valuable marker horizons that represent time-synchronous events across the site and sometimes between sites.
Yeah, Sailor Curse, we're talking about the new ChatGPT we set up to test. This is a way to test for if someone is playing a pre-recorded video or if they're actually streaming the video game live.
From the late 9th century at Tel ES.
So this is what you do. Quit out and you do what ChatGPT says. In the level Bunker 2 and GoldenEye, random tasks disable security cameras.
You got it.
Oh dang! So you gotta do Bunker 2.
Cool. Okay, so get this.
Secret agent.
A major conflagration
And
at
this
this
proves-
specific location resulted in the consolidation of parts of the roof construction
I have the script and everything. I'll paste it because I think you can probably come up with some pretty cool stuff. Because
we could
what's it
reconstruct
called?
the events which led to the formation of an approximately 80 centimeter thick layer. The base of this layer that overlies the floor surface is a thin, charred, organic material-rich ash layer. As the clays in this layer were not altered by heat,
Oh,
and the
whoops.
ceramics still
This is
have preserved
I'm playing
residue,
00 strats for
we concluded
Secret
that
Agent.
The ash was produced elsewhere and was redistributed to this location.
Secret Agent, do you need the clipboard, the document? I don't
However,
think so.
There are ceramics that
Anyways.
are associated with burnt roof sediments that do not have preserved residues. So that's interesting. So the roof was apparently burned extensively.
Well, you don't need that for secret agent.
Let's see. We identify an unusual bin and associated stone pavement in a corner rich in artifacts, spiderliths, and charred organic material. So, okay, and then it goes on into the introduction. It says that the remains of violent destructions are often
Anyways,
points of archaeological stratigraphic
both gather intelligence and locate secret. Oh, really?
Destruction
No way.
layers in the Levant, at least, are up to a meter or so thick. The stratum
Anyways.
often contains collapsed wall and roof remains.
It's pretty cool, eh? And then there's this one too. There's this one too, Baron. This one's pretty cool. We just wash them after this.
Generally non-stratified
It tells a random number generator.
Destruction layers are thus thought to represent
Yo, no way, Gregory Schmeggery? What? Come on, get out of here. Are you serious, Gregory Schmeggery? Get out of here. Are you serious right now? Is this real life? Thank you, Gregory Schmeggery.
The more important and interesting question is, what was
Is
the
that Fat
nature
Greg?
of this destruction event?
If it is, thanks, bro. Thank you, man. Are you serious,
So
dude?
like in the
Thank you
Southern
so much.
Levantine Iron Age, typical
To Russ? Oh, Russell Legend too, man.
of such destruction layers
We
are
love
at
Russ.
sites such as Lashish, Beersheba, and Tel Halil.
Why? Why is this bot broken? We broke the bot,
and
my
the sites
friends.
of Timnah, Ashkelon, and Ekron.
What? Why? What the fuck is this?
The length of time required for the formation of a destruction layer is not well documented. According to written sources, there were Assyrian and Babylonian
fuck,
campaigns, but in the Iron Age, is that
This sucks,
what caused the destruction? So okay, so that raises the question: was this
Thank
a
you.
natural event, or was it?
14 shots at minus 23 degrees. Okay, so
Yeah,
here we
I was
are.
gonna say, did somebody burn
Pass these guys
the
away
place
first.
down, or did
Right.
the natural disaster?
So check this out. Check this out.
Right. So
Should I do anything new? Yo, we got new commands. One sec. 14 shot minus 23 degrees. That's like here.
Sequence of events that brought about the end of the site in 604
Proof.
BC was
Done.
followed by a period of abandonment.
Anything new?
before
Yo, what
the
up, Greg?
Babylonian destruction.
We went to Fort Lauderdale in Florida. I went there for a week over New Year's and Christmas with my girlfriend.
Represents another
That was
such
amazing. Really blessed, really lucky.
Okay.
Really, really blessed. I
The
streamed
time span that a
on the
destruction
beach. There's a couple
horizon
YouTube videos
represents
on the
needs
beach and
to
South
be
Beach
better
showing
understood.
Fort Lauderdale
This is a
water
major
in 1080p
objective
with a
of this
gimbal if you
study.
want to see.
Here we
I'm not
examine the case of a short-term
advertising on
violent
YouTube, but
event.
you asked what's new. I figured I have a 1080p video for you if you want to see. Thanks, bro. Thanks for subbing, man. Thanks for the gift
Gath, I
sub.
think is a
And Russ,
nickname.
Okay,
Quotes.
Telesafi
Russ
is
the legend.
dated to the mid-late 9th
You
century
can lurk.
before Common Era. And then they
I'm a
assume
big
that it's
lurker.
probably the result of
Sweet
a
sounds cool, yeah.
military campaign.
And also we came up
Which,
with
of
these
course, could be.
these chat GPT
But,
commands to
you know,
make sure
that's,
that
I
someone
think, an
isn't
important question.
playing a pre-recorded
But if
stream.
but see, here's the thing. They said that there was an ash
Like
layer
that
that
RNG,
looked
the
like
14
ash
shots
came
at minus
somewhere
23
else.
degrees.
So,
And what, playing Bunker 2?
yeah, how would you explain that according to, a military? A
Yeah,
battle.
unless it was volcanic or something else.
Right.
Why?
So the approximately 80 centimeter thick distinct destruction layer that characterizes the last
I'll
Philistine
paste
settlement
the
on site
URL
yielded
for
a rich
the
assemblage of
for the
artifacts,
ChatGPT setup. How
including
you do it in
hundreds of
Stream
early
Elements is probably the best way
vessels
to do it.
deposited
Let me do it.
amongst
I'm using Washington too.
collapsed architectural features.
Thank you, Greg.
So let me jump to there. Got some interesting pictures that we won't analyze here, but there's a photograph of the northeast corner of the excavation area showing the sediments with blocks of angular chalk which bury various broken vessels. Note, too, that the chalk-containing sediment surface slopes to the west. I'm going to have to study this to make sense out of it, but we can look at the...
It also seemed to be saying that there were ceramics in the ash that came from somewhere else that were not burned, but that then there were other ceramics associated with the ash from the roof materials that were burned.
Okay.
Right.
That's what it sounded like.
Yeah, that's what I thought it was saying.
Let's
so
see.
a bunch of guys came in with pots that were on fire, and they threw them and burned the whole place down. I think I've heard a story like that. It's like a guy named Gideon, maybe,
Yeah.
burned down an entire army with pots on fire.
So it says here,
Mystery solved.
an isolated human skull and several non-articulated human bones were found at one location under a pile of collapsed building materials, just to the west of wall 123007. These bones appear to belong to a person who died during the initial phase of the destruction and was subsequently buried under the collapsed walls. Several additional human skeletons were found on stratum A3 floors under the destruction debris in an adjacent area of the excavation outside the presently examined area. A concentration of burnt animal bones was found about a meter away from the human skull and also adjacent to the brick wall. All these human and animal bones were clearly lying in the black, fine-grained sediment on the floor. Okay, so something happened. And I'm going to do it. Let's see, I'll do a share screen here and we'll look at this one of the wall here. The area, the walls of this corner. Okay, so let me get it lined up. So we've got the photo of the northeast corner of the excavation area showing the sediments with blocks of angular chalk, that's this over here on the left, which bury various broken vessels. Note, too, that the chalk-containing sediments surface slopes to the west and the interface with the light brown roof sediment in the lower part of the section is almost vertical. Let's see. So this up here with this black, this is topsoil. So this would have been deposited later. B, which is, okay, so this is right here. This is B, and that is, let's see, A is topsoil, B is roof consolidated and unconsolidated sediment. C, which is this over here, is part of the remnants of a wall, the Terra Paise wall. D down here is the upper part of the floor, and E down here is the surface part of the floor. So this must have been an upper part of a floor material that maybe collapsed down. And with these blocks of chalk, I guess they would have been the walls. Let's see, if we go up here, there's other pictures you can see of the area, and like areas, let's see here, you can see there's let's see, okay, yeah, look, here's artifacts and things, like one surface exposed at the beginning of the excavation after the topsoil was removed. The stone mortar and burnt sediment slab are indicated by an arrow and arrowhead, respectively. Okay. So something happened here, and I haven't fully digested this report yet. Yeah, first indications that excavation square 89C could be of particular interest. The results are divided into two sections, the layer-by-layer analysis of the destruction horizon, followed by the analysis of macroscopic and microscopic artifacts that relate to the use of the site at this location. So, I'll stop the share So that's one event in the Holocene. Then we've got, the Bronze Age collapse. There's a lot of studies on that. Let's see, here's another very interesting study. This is from 2023. So it's very recent. And the title of the article, which appeared in Earth Science Reviews, is Abrupt Climate Change in Arid Central Asia During the Holocene, a Review. And in their abstract, they say abrupt, unlike the long-term, that is Earth orbital scale climatic trends, abrupt climate changes dominated arid Central Asia during the Holocene, and their origin remains unclear. We present the first comprehensive synthesis of centennial-scale climatic events in this region based on 9 rigorously selected Holocene paleoclimate records. The results show that mega-regional abrupt climate events were consistently recorded during the middle to late Holocene. Strikingly, such mega-regional climate events were rarely indicated in the records before 5.5 thousand years ago. Interestingly, because what they're doing is they're showing up after the neoglaciation climate deterioration. Okay, so they go on to say, this pattern of mega-regional wet and dry events, although unevenly distributed in time, is ascribed to the intensification and southward movement of the westerlies since the late Middle Holocene, which favored the establishment of climatic teleconnections across the entire region. By comparing climatic events in the arid Central Asia region with classical records of Holocene abrupt climate events, we particularly found that 5 centennial-scale wet events were broadly consistent with North Atlantic cooling events and a global synthesis of cold periods supporting a cold, wet climatic configuration in arid Central Asia. Analysis of the mechanism
for sure, my dude. For sure, my man.
Suggests that these abrupt events were forced mainly by decreased sea surface temperatures in the North Atlantic and negative phases of the North Atlantic Oscillation.
The fuck?
So that's interesting that what we see, and this is consistent with other evidence that shows with the global cooling that occurred in the wake, along with the neoglaciation, you now have a deterioration of climate and more extreme and abrupt events occurring. And in the introduction, they say abrupt climate changes and extreme synoptic events have always significantly affected the human living environment. Extreme synoptic and climatic events, such as flood and droughts, may last from several days to several years. So yeah, and then moreover, abrupt climate changes on multi-decadal to centennial timescales may have been an important factor in the rise and fall of past civilizations, including the classical Maya civilization, social changes in ancient Mesopotamia, and the development of cultures and civilizations in China. So consequently, the documentation of past abrupt climate changes on centennial to decadal timescales has become a focus of paleoclimate research. So yeah, they're looking at deep sea sediment cores, which revealed a cyclicity in ice-rafted debris events. Records of glacier advancements and recessions.
That sounded like something you were going to get into. Wasn't that the Miyake events?
That's what I was about to bring up, too.
Yeah.
It'd be interesting if some of those indicators in the
Thanks, Broski.
chronology would line up, like, for example, with that archaeological site
I changed shirts, sailor.
Telosafi, yeah. Uh-huh. So based and then in their conclusions,
Man, I was playing Morrowind again the other day. I think that game is just too
based on a
old.
comprehensive analysis of
It's hard to play again, to learn all the struggles.
a series of mega regional
I guess if it's the best game out, you can play Morrowind, but if it's not the best game out, you really can't.
What was it again?
Maybe for the first time ever. But man, like, just the cliff racers. Fighting those cliff racers, I mean...
So, the conclusions and perspectives.
It's not fun.
Comprehensive analysis of 9 high-quality Holocene paleoclimate records.
Where your swings don't do anything. They literally do nothing. Over and over.
Statistically identified for the first time. And these are dating at 6.5 thousand years ago, 4.7, 3.3, 1.8, and 0.4. So that's 400 years ago. And then in parentheses, they have corresponding to the Little Ice Age. And they alternated these cold, wet events, then alternated with 4 dry events, one at around 5.3, the next one at 3.9 thousand years ago, the next one at 2.6, and then finally one at 1.1, and this was corresponding to the medieval warm period. Point 2, mega-regional abrupt climate changes occurred more frequently after the approximate 5.5 thousand years ago than before. This change is primarily attributed to the intensification and southward westerly circulation since the late Holocene.
I'm not going to dox you, but how are you doing in your state?
Hemisphere, LTG.
I know what state. I remember where you are. I don't want to dox you.
North Atlantic.
I know you've been changing.
Negative phase. So they're talking about then changes in atmospheric current movement and in oceanic. And they're associating it with that. Now, is that the cause, or is that something just correlated? I don't know. But it goes on to say that the wet events are broadly coherent with North Atlantic cooling events and cold periods in a global synthesis study supporting the cold-wet climatic configuration. So this is interesting.
So I don't have the timeline perfect in my head, but it sounds to be like when the climate was warmer, it was more stable.
Yes.
And then as it started to cool down and it got much colder again, then you start having these crazy outsized events.
That's exactly right. Yes. That's exactly right. Yes.
That's exactly the opposite of what they're claiming today.
Oh, yeah.
The weather's going to get worse and going to be more erratic and crazy.
Yeah, we've been through episodes of that where the hurricanes were much more severe.
Oh, yeah.
It's colder.
Yeah.
Here's another interesting thing. This is back from 2006. Was published in it was published in the Journal of Quaternary Research. It's entitled Tripartite Climate Reversal in Central Europe, 5,600 to 5,300 years ago. And this is from the study of variations in water level at Lake Constance, which is in Italy, right? I believe it is. So they did a history of variations in water level of Lake Constance.
No way.
Is reconstructed from sediment
I'm sorry, Greg, bro.
Of a sediment sequence.
Bro, honestly, I can learn from it, and we appreciate it, and because really, what we're just memories, man. Like we're just memories. Like I was doing photos. I was arranging photos for my parents, and we're just memories, man. It's all brought me back in time. And
between 5600 and 5300
As long as we can make good
years
memories
before
right now in the
at
present,
Arbon-Blanchet 3 coincided
that's like all
with
that really
climatic
matters in
cooling,
life,
uh,
to an extent.
in various regions of both hemispheres. This period corresponds to the mid-Holocene climate transition, or the
So it's good
onset
you're gonna move
of
back
the
maybe to Ohio.
neoglaciation,
Ohio's dope, man.
and
I'll be there
suggests
again this summer,
interhemispheric
probably.
linkages for the climate variations recorded at Arbon-Blanchet. Wow. This mid-Holocene climate reversal may have resulted from complex interactions between changes in orbital forcing, ocean circulation, and solar activity. Over the past 30 years, in the introduction now, European paleoclimate reconstructions based on glacier variations, river and lake level fluctuations, and pollen and plant macrofossils have shown the complexity of the Holocene climate, punctuated by successive
Such a shitty player.
century-scale cooling events. More recently, records from the Greenland ice sheet and the North Atlantic Ocean have given additional support
Slow as balls.
for a complex Holocene climatic pattern. Moreover, there is growing evidence that Holocene climatic oscillations reflect solar forcing. Here we present paleoenvironmental and archaeological evidence for an abrupt tripartite climate change between 5550 years before present and 5320 years before present. Lake Constance,
Stream went
Switzerland,
down?
linked to a variation in solar activity.
What do you mean? Stream went down?
Oh, interesting.
No,
These
I said
climatic
0 drop
reversals
frames.
induced glacier expansion in
So
the
sorry,
Alps
man, I don't
and
know.
lake level rises of Lake Constance, which led to the
Maybe it
abandonment
did.
of the Neolithic.
My stream does
pile
drop
drive
from time to time, but
of
it would tell me if that
Arbon-Blanchet.
happens.
This may also explain the sudden burial of the Neolithic Alpine Iceman Otzi, recently found in the Tyrolean Alps, a contemporary of the Arbon-Blanchet people. So there, I mean, that's consistent with the fact that the climate becomes more extreme as the climate cools.
I go too
and
many
tends to
frames.
become more stable in the warmer times.
I go too far.
That's what the data is pointing to. It's not just a conclusion that I'm coming to, it's what the data is suggesting over and over again. So, again, this is the stuff that's being neglected in the mainstream media about climate change.
But
If
all
you
this
want to
stuff.
study, if you want to understand climate change, you've got to look at the history of climate.
But these papers you're reading today are all recent, right?
Oh yeah.
These.
Yep.
You see sometimes how they. They're
Wow,
not
I'm so
studying
shitty.
global warming. They're not getting funded for climate change research necessarily. And they'll, people will produce these papers that don't directly have anything to do with modern climate change. But they almost negate they almost defeat the argument.
Well, they do.
They're not coming from American scientists. They're coming from around the globe, and it's the Americans that want to lead that scare tactic.
Well, the money is in, anthropogenic global warming. And, now you can see how they're ramping up the narrative. Everything is unprecedented, and everything is a result of fossil fuels. And ignore the fact that no matter what you're talking about, and we've talked about it a whole lot on this show,
I'm not sure what I said.
it's all happened before.
I said a
What's
really
happened before
heartwarming,
is
touching
happening
thing
now,
about
will continue to happen.
how I
regardless of
learned
what
to
we
spend
do
time with
and
my
how many SUVs we
father
drive,
through
it's not
Russ
gonna
Jericho
matter.
sharing that
These things have been
his father
happening
was
since-
passing away with cancer
since this
and
planet has
has
had a
recently
climate.
passed away with cancer, his
And
father.
we can
and that
provide
You sharing this
extensive
information brings me
documentation showing
closer
that many
to
of
my
these
father
events
and
have
spending
far
time with him.
exceeded anything we've
So you giving
experienced in
the
recent
gift sub
centuries or recent historic
to Russ
times.
Jericho, whose father had passed
Yet-
recently, the trucker in the UK legend,
We're not really talking
recently
about that.
reached out to get in
And
touch with
people who do
Russ,
talk about this
reconnect
stuff
with him
are
before
labeled
passing,
climate
because that's
change
all we are,
deniers,
memories. We're
which
just
is
really just
unbelievable.
memories. That was a synopsis
So,
of what I had
you
said
know,
previously.
it's
That's pretty
very
much it. I
disconcerting
I'm not
to me
gonna
when I see
fake
all of these now,
the emotion again. You know
you
what I
know,
mean?
these young people. they're,
That's
you
why I
know,
sound so like
smashing,
heartless, but like,
throwing stuff
because
on
Sour Slash was here
works of art, you know, interfering, you know,
when I
gluing
went to spend
themselves
an
to the
hour with my
roadways,
father
marching down,
on
blocking
stream.
traffic.
I said I just went to spend
All
time
of
with my
these things,
dad.
these
Because
tactics
of
that
Russ
they're doing
Jericho's dad telling me all this, you know, him sharing,
utterly meaningless.
brings me closer.
And if you talk to any of these people, do they know any of the stuff we're talking about here? No. Have they read these
fucking
reports
really
and
good
these
run.
studies that we're
This is
referring
an
to here?
incredibly good
every
run.
episode that we're doing? No, they know nothing of this. What they know is what they've been spoon-fed, the propaganda they've been spoon-fed since they first started into the public school system and now into college, you know, and I told you how Julie, in order to graduate, she had to watch, this is back, you know, 10, 12 years ago, but in order to graduate from Emory and get her degree in Middle Eastern Studies, she had to watch, she was required to watch Al Gore's Inconvenient Truth twice. Not just once.
Once is
Twice.
not enough.
Once is not enough. But yeah,
What was
that
his
would
book?
be,
Earth in the Balance, like mid-90s,
yeah,
right? So there's like a whole generation now, 25, 28 years
yeah, yeah.
of young people that have been fed this again and again.
That's right.
And they totally believe it.
They totally believe it.
Doom porn.
But
It's
how
bad
do
for
we-
your brain.
Send your kids to the public spoon feeding.
Yeah.
The public what?
The public spoon feeding place.
Yeah.
Oh, the public spoon feeding. Yeah, okay. So then we won't talk about this tonight. But this is from, actually going back to 2000, but from the Journal of Archaeological Science. It's called Poseidon's
I hate this fucking
Horses.
game.
I might have mentioned this in a previous.
That's really funny. I know, it was a really funny way to pass away.
Poseidon's horses, plate
Wasn't that
tectonics, and
fast?
earthquake storms.
Like, where were
in the
they,
late
man?
Bronze
I guess I
Age
blew one
Aegean
guy
and
up.
Eastern Mediterranean.
So dumb.
I like that.
Dumb
Earthquake
names.
Poseidon's
storms.
horses. What an interesting,
I remember that term.
Yeah.
interesting name.
Yeah, earthquake storms. So it seems like, you know, there is a whole mass of evidence showing that there's a variety of these different of things that are happening. You know, we're seeing that, you know, what is it now that the, you know, the number of, say, impacts, asteroid and comet, bolide impacts in the Holocene is far greater than anybody had previously imagined. You know, look at the work of Bruce Massey and others, you know, Mike Bailey, Victor Klube, William Napier, Duncan Steele. I mean, all of these guys are looking and going, yeah, it looks like there's been a whole